Genesis 3:10. I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid. We don't have to be a counselor or have a PhD in psychology to understand people. If we understand that verse, we understand every person we meet, even the one staring back at us in the mirror. I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid. To some degree, all of us have places where we feel we are not all that we are meant to be, and as a result of that fear, we hide. We hide our need. We hide our weaknesses. We hide the places in us that have been shamed or wounded, places where we were given the messages that we need to hide, because if we don't, we'll be rejected. Welcome to the Wild at Heart podcast. This is Stasi Eldridge with you this week of March 22nd, and with me in the studio are my husband John and Alex and Melanie Burton. You know Alex is a part of the Wild at Heart team, but I don't think you know his amazing wife, Melanie. This is her first time in this podcast, and I'm so looking forward to sharing this time together and talking about what we're going to be talking about today.
Alex and Mel, welcome, you
Thanks.
guys.
Thank you.
Mel,
Big day.
how are you feeling coming into this?
Excited. Looking forward to seeing where the conversation goes and being a part of the bigger picture here. So, yeah, I'm excited.
Me too.
Mm-hmm.
Me too. And welcome back, friends. We've been taking a journey to bring the heart back to center stage. Back in January, felt like, hey, let's bring the heart back in and make it central again and check in on everybody and take a journey together that we're looking after one another's hearts here in the start of 2021, which has gotten off a little bumpy for most people.
Right.
Right.
I love that we're still calling it the start of 2021 because it does feel like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it is,
We're already into March, but
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the end of the third quarter, but I'm waiting for the
We're still
change.
beginning.
I'm waiting
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
things to feel different.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. As you guys think back on 2020, first part of 2021, has it been easy to keep track of the life of the heart for you?
I love the laugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think for me, 2020 would have been difficult no matter what year it was because of the loss of my mom and
Yes.
just some other things that and that's coming up as an anniversary. So I'm still like kind of it just made it kind of worse in dealing with all of that at the same time. But I'm actually so grateful that she didn't have to deal with any of it.
Yeah.
So that makes my heart a little bit more peaceful. But yeah, I mean, I think I feel hope coming. I feel transition coming. And so that keeps me going.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
I feel
I need
hope
some
coming.
of what you have.
Yeah, let's spread that around.
Let's all hold hands.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would describe 2020 and any attempt to keep the heart central as a daily fight.
Yeah.
And even now to some extent, I mean, we're describing the beginning of this year, right? And the world's been very distracted over the last year by, as we all know, everything that's been going on in the world. And so I guess for me, I would describe it as, a daily fight to go, wait, there's a bigger picture going on than, which vaccine are they going to end up with and what, where are we headed and what's going to happen in the future? And I think it's a daily fight of realizing that the best place for my heart is to just be present to today. And so that's the daily fight is making the heart central of not letting my heart wander to speculation and worry and looking at the future, looking at the past, but just being present to today. So that's kind of how it's been.
And you
going.
just celebrated a 1-year anniversary of sorts.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Of heart care.
Yes.
Tell the folks about that.
Yeah. So Sunday was day 365 of daily outside every day, which looked like mainly running at least a mile a day.
Even in the middle of all the snow
Even
and
in the
ice.
snow, even in the ice, even rain, wind,
Wow.
You're like the postman.
I remember a buddy
Regardless.
came to you
Yeah.
and asked you if you wanted to go streaking.
Yes. Yep. My buddy Aaron was like, "Hey, would you like to streak with me?" And I'm, I prefer to keep my clothes on. But then he explained we're actually talking about trying to do something every day, and wanted to run a mile every day. And so he put a bet on it and said, "If you don't run a mile a day, you owe me $100." And so that was kind of the thing that got me into it, and it wasn't necessarily a noble pursuit, but over time, it was a rescue from God, because what it became is a daily practice that was life-giving, and that it was literally right before the lockdowns happened, the shutdowns.
Oh, this
happened.
wasn't for the pandemic?
No. So
Oh, wow.
he invited me into this right before Colorado went into lockdown. We didn't know we were going to go into a lockdown. And so I had already started this practice, and then it became a lifeline, right? Because we're stuck at home, and it was an excuse every day to get outside. And that's what the year became for me, was more, it wasn't about running a mile a day. It was about being outside every day.
Did it help?
Oh, it helped so much. It helped so much. I mean, even just, some runs I would run pretty fast, meaning 8-minute mile, not a 4-minute mile, but just 8 minutes outside, seeing what's happening with the day, feeling the sun on my face, feeling the wind on my bald head, whatever it was, it was recentering and just like taking a big breath each day. So
my daily walk with the dogs is my life-giving.
Yeah.
And I'm stunned at how often I have abandoned it.
Yeah.
Even in the last 3 months. Like, I know soul care is important. I know these things are good for me. And, 2 or 3 times a week, not 7. So go you. There you go.
Yeah. And I'm going ahead and just carrying on. I don't know if I will stay regimented to every single day, but since Sunday, I've still been out, going.
This is good. This is a good habit.
It is.
To have formed.
Yeah, what a good practice.
This is also week 2 that many of us are tracking together in the Wild at Heart experience, the captivating experience, which we've described a couple times on the podcast. But for those of you who are just tuning into that, we made some beautiful films last year, 6-part series for women, 6-part series for men. And then we built experiences around those of reading and meditation, scripture, some journaling, some additional encouragement from Stasi and I. And this is available free on our website. You can sign up for it anytime and come take the 6-week experience as a woman or as a man. But many of you jumped in last week to start the experience with us. So we're kind of journeying together. And here in week 2, we asked Alex and Mel if they would jump into session 2 of the women's and of the men's and kind of give that some reflection. And I'm just curious, what was that like? What did that raise for you? Mel, you've been in this message for so long. You've journeyed through so much of it. What did it stir in you this time?
I think it was a good reminder to go back to Genesis and look at those scriptures and our creation and why we are who we are, but also being very vulnerable and asking yourself those questions of, what do you do when you're hurting? What do you do when you're not in the right space with God? And how do you handle that? And your own heart in that. So it's been a long time since I've done captivating and like just the whole message of it. So yeah, I think it was just a great reminder and to go there. And as you grow and heal, I think your perspective changes, of course. And I kind of looked at like where I was like 10 years ago before healing. And then from then to now, there's a big difference of how I handle myself and how I, handle my heart and other people. So, yeah.
That is so awesome, Melanie. And I can say that is so true. Just getting to experience you and the life that you bring. And all of us just stepping away increasingly from fear
Mhm.
is beautiful. And then getting to offer more freely the weight of your presence. And I know I get to experience that from you.
Thank you.
I'd like to hear from both of you, ladies, as you think about the two ways we kind of describe that the false self, fallen Eve, can kind of go two general directions towards a sort of controlling approach to life, to people, to personality, or to more of a desolate emptiness in the way that shapes us, hiding and that sort of thing. What do you see this week? What can I ask? I mean, it's a little embarrassing.
I'll
but can
go first. I'll pave the way.
Okay, great.
And I will also confess that John pointed at me when he said controlling.
I did not.
You totally did.
That's so controlling.
Well, I when I look at this area, I am struck by a couple of things. And one of them is that I feel like I'm an overachiever in this area because I don't limit myself to one. But my bent would be to control, but I go to control when I'm feeling desolate. And the underlying fear and accusation that comes against my heart doesn't seem to have diminished. The vulnerability where the fear comes in of failing, of not measuring up, and the accusation from the enemy saying that is so true, that's who you are, that doesn't feel like it's changed. And I've been in this message for more than 20 years. What I think has changed is my walk with God and his strength in me to be access to say no to that. But I still tend to go to control, whether that's the kitchen counter to the way people are working or responding or feeding back to me. It's not pretty. It's not pretty, and it does not go well. And then the desolate places are generally the places where I am failing that make me want to hide. And then I withdraw out of shame.
Sure.
Because certainly I am naked and failing. And so you wouldn't want anything to do with me. So I just pull back. That's where I tend to go.
Oh, I relate to that a lot. Actually, as you were saying that, I think I clean. I like when I want control, I just know that that's what I can control. And so I just start cleaning something. And then I think the control comes when situations that I can't control are happening around me or to somebody I love. I feel like I go to the desolate shame place with relationships. And that's where I kind of retreat if I don't feel in the right space with myself and the other person, or just grounded in God in that space. And so I retreat. I need time to process and be able to go, okay, what was that? Why did I feel that way? And be able to interact again in that, either a group of women or a group of people, or with certain people that I'm like, oh, I need to do that over. After I've had time and been reassured of and that's where my healing, I think, has really come from, is being reassured of God's love for me.
Yes.
And just that foundation is, no matter what my interaction is going to be, it's going to be the fact that I have to remind myself of who God says I am, where I am, who he's created me to be, and that I'm okay. So I feel like I need time to process and remind myself of that a lot.
Yeah.
So I do go to both places.
Well, the other thing, I don't know if you'd be willing to share some on it, but last night when we were watching together, which was a really cool thing, by the way.
Oh, you did it together?
Yeah, we both watched.
Yeah, we she watched Bart's session
Yeah.
with me, and
Yeah.
I watched Jamie's session with her. Like we did it. We're doing this together,
Okay.
walking through
Mhm.
it together.
Yeah.
which is new. Like that's a cool thing that people get to do that now, that you could actually
Yeah.
walk through both. Like
Together.
so
Mhm.
anyways, that's been pretty cool. But when we were watching, and Stacey, you're describing that kind of polar differences of how fallen Eve expresses herself and its control or its desolation, and Mel, you were reacting to I think you said something along the lines of, I see the control come out with the kids.
Mm.
Like
Mhm.
that's an area.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's, as a mom, you just wanna control their world, and you wanna be able to control that they're safe, that everything's okay, and sometimes I have to even, like, choose not to because I even catch myself going, "That might not be the best thing for them if I step in." And, um, and it is hard not to, in just the just being a mom. I mean, generally, and you just want the best for them, but, yeah, having that ability to go, "They're gonna be okay, and this is actually them growing up, and I need to release that and release them into, um, hands of God, and know that that's probably not where I'm supposed to step in and
See,
let
that's
them
so good
grow."
because when they're
Mhm.
young, you do step
Oh,
in.
yeah. Mhm.
Mhm.
And then growing, as they grow up, it's like, wow, this stretching process of less and less control. And as parents of children in their 30s,
Mm.
it's still happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. I'm
Mhm.
really struck by the love of God, fundamental okayness.
Yes.
Mhm.
So, friends, obviously, not everyone's doing the experience this week, and you can jump in on our website and sign up anytime and do it anytime. It's always going to be there now, evergreen,
Mhm.
as a 6-week program. But part 2, episode 2 for women is Fallen Eve, and for men, it's the poser. But it's essentially the false self and the construction of our fig leaves and the way that we handle life apart from God. And I'm jumping ahead to the relief for a moment, but just to name, like, as we come to a place of fundamental acceptance,
Mm.
as we come to a groundedness in our identity, in the love of God and who we are to Him, it allows us to then more freely, come into a studio and let people ask you,
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
vulnerable questions. We can move more openly and securely in looking at our false self and our fig leaves and our ways of hiding and controlling and all that. And the journey of wholeheartedness takes both, right? It takes a groundedness in the love of God. It's an invitation to that. And it also, honesty is your friend.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Honesty is our friend. It really is, to just go, okay, right. I do have a false self. Here's what it looks like. Here's
Mhm.
how it was constructed. Here's where it got built from. So for us as guys, we need to step up to the table here.
Yeah.
What did you recognize about your false self? What new thing
Yeah.
presented as you were doing the experience?
Yeah. Man, kind of, again, these two reactions, right? Like watching it going, oh, wow, the miles we've come, but then the miles I've not come yet, the ways I'm not finished yet. And when Mel and I were watching it, and we went, we went through the whole experience. There's these great questions that come after you watch the video if you sign up for the actual experience. And I think I'm trying to remember what the one question was, but it was basically, how would you describe yourself and how would others describe you, right?
As a
man.
man. Yes.
And there's been a lot of good that's changed in me, but I had kind of two categories for how others would describe me. And One category is probably how my coworkers and my friends and the people in my, I would say, external world would describe me. And I think they would say nice things. I think they would say,
Yes, they would say nice things.
yes. I think they would say he's kind and, he's helpful and he's, whatever, good things, right? But there's another category, and it's her and it's my kids. And they get to see all of me, which is true for all of us, right? Your family really gets the full picture. And I don't think they would describe me exactly that way. And what really came to me as I was watching Bart's session and kind of processing, how does this apply to me now? The realization as we construct the fig leaf, right? And mine was this fig leaf of, I'm just going to be the best guy I can be and not be a problem for anyone and make sure that everyone else is okay so I can be okay, right? But it expressed itself in work and in friendship and in my external world. And I worked so hard at doing that. And to some extent, still do. Like, that's hard for me to break out of because it's that search for validation that I remove from receiving from God and place on other people. And that takes a lot of work and a lot of energy. And so what these guys got for years and years was dad who was worn out and dad who was checked out when he got home, and husband who was worn out and checked out when he got home because he was working so hard to make the fig leaf work all day long.
Yes.
And he had nothing left when he came home. And there's still days that is true of me, unfortunately. And the work's not done. And it has gotten better and it has changed, and we have made, progress. I hope she would feel that way. But it's still a process. And I think where I've come to now, and as I watch it present day, the litmus test for, okay, how am I processing this and how am I growing, really comes down to these guys. Comes down to Mel and the kids and how I'm doing there.
Yeah.
Can I respond to that?
Would you like to?
I would. I'd like to respond just because from a wife's perspective on this, his ability to do and like just be helpful and just part of it's not all the fig leaf. It is who you are in many ways, and you're very gifted and good at it. What our experience over time has been fighting for that same person because of knowing how good he is, how much fun he can be, to bring that home because we know who we see it.
Sure.
And we want part of that.
Sure.
And so we've had that conversation of that's who we want at home because we know you are so good. Like we want that humor, we want that that joy, and so I think it was for us to fight for him as well in that, to help him realize that like you can do both. Like we need you to do both. Has been really good too, and just for the kids to learn how to express that as well, like what they need from us in that.
This is a little bit of a rabbit trail and then my confession, but the amount of energy that we spend maintaining the false self, this is very, very hopeful. Like, gang, think of all the energy you're going to recover when you don't have to maintain the house of cards, when you're not trying to hold up the world or hold up, a certain persona or What I became very aware of recently was how much energy I spend trying to control the narrative that other people tell themselves about me.
Oof.
Wow.
Now, not what other people tell other people about me. So not like in a, gossip or what kind of thing,
Yeah.
but literally just what that person thinks of me.
Yeah.
But for me, I became shockingly aware of, oh my gosh, I spend an enormous amount of emotional energy, thought, and personal, get your stuff together
Yeah.
to control the narrative that other people hold about me. And I think I had shared a couple of weeks ago on the podcast that I went and did a soul care intensive with some really great people. And, I knew it wasn't just COVID and it wasn't 2020. I just knew I needed a fresh round of more wholeheartedness.
Yeah.
And this was one of the revelations that came out was, oh my gosh, how much time and energy and effort in my life, but even up to the present, and going, I would love to recover that energy. That is exhausting.
Yes.
Maintaining
Yeah.
the false self, however it's energizing us in our current life, I would love to get all that energy back. I think I would be a more restful person.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I love you telling the effects of it because I everybody can relate to that, honestly.
Yeah?
I'd love to go ahead and share a story of the effects of my controlling.
Yes.
And this is a simple story, but it's very exposing. Sam and Susie are in need of new plates, new dinnerware. And so I have been having so much fun, and they can't afford new dinnerware. It's $40 for a set, but they don't have that. So I'm like looking. And I found this set that I went, they are going to love this. I want to get them this. And so I showed it to Sam. He's like, ooh, that's really nice. And then I showed it to Susie, and she's not reacting the way I want her to react. And eventually goes, yeah, Mom, I'd really like something more simple. And I was mad. I want to give you a gift, and this is it, and you're going to like it. Like, I wanted to control what she liked. And here was the effect. She saw right through me as okay, yeah, I'll get you what you want. And she said, Mom, I feel like if I don't go along with what you like, I get it pushed out of your heart.
Ooh.
Wow.
Ouch.
Yeah. Yeah. And I had to go, my immediate was, no, that's not true. And then it was like, wow. That's kind of true.
That is kind of true.
Because I am looking to you to validate me by a simple thing about what plates.
Wow.
Yep.
And Stace, like at the same time, for your daughter-in-law to be able to name that to you says something pretty remarkable about that relationship. Like I don't know that many daughter-in-laws would feel the freedom with their mother-in-law to name that.
Wow, I like
even though
that.
it's not a great thing.
Right.
And I know like it's something to pay attention to, but wow. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
We've done the work for that relationship, for that to be a beautiful thing, not to be a hurtful thing.
It's good.
That is good. Let me ask your thoughts on this. So the false self is uniquely constructed over time from our personal stories, from what was rewarded and what was shamed, from what earned us love and help and blessing and validation and acceptance, and what didn't. And we learn, right, in different family systems, in different cultures, in different school environments. You learn growing up how to do the deal, right? You learn how to do the dance.
Yeah.
What's the fear behind that? How would you name now, with some maturity and with some clarity on your own story, kind of looking back, what is the fear in us? And is it a little bit different for women and men? I'm just kind of curious on that point too. How would you name the core fear that fuels the the hiding or the controlling or the posing, the search for validation, the hiding from exposure, fear of exposure, how would you name that?
I can only name it for myself, and maybe it resonates, but it's fear of rejection.
Mm.
And for me in particular, the predominant theme in our family dynamic when I was growing up was just don't be a problem. Don't be a problem for us. You take care of you, and everything will be okay as long as you're not a problem. And just over time, learn that through some different wounding experiences of times where I would maybe as a little boy make myself the center of attention, and that didn't go well.
Oh, wow.
And I wasn't wanted, and it wasn't appreciated.
Yep.
And so what I learned was don't be a problem and don't make yourself center stage and stay on the fringes on the outside, because if you don't, you're going to be out. And
Like
and I
evicted.
and I think that
Mm.
was the core fear
Mm.
that drove me to go, okay, I'm going to do everything in my power to just not be a problem.
Mm.
And to make sure that, like I was saying before, that the people around me are okay so that I can be okay.
Mm.
And I think okay looks like I'm not rejected. I'm not abandoned.
Yeah.
So for me, I think it's around rejection and abandonment,
Yes.
not being loved.
Yep. Yep. Well, what about for you?
I'm going to go back to the session that we watched. And when Stasi said, convinced that she could not trust God with her heart, and I wrote that down. Just my story, I was convinced that God wasn't good to me, that he was good to everybody else, and that I knew he was good, and that he was worthy of love, that he was worthy of my affection and praise, but I just didn't see that he was good to me because of my story and just the trauma and the not being chosen really by my family. I've come to understand that that's probably my biggest wound is not feeling chosen. And I think that really hit me when I was watching this session, that it goes back to Eve. Like I didn't really put those two together for my story, that it was because she wasn't convinced. But she was convinced by evil. But she wasn't convinced by God. And I'm like, oh, right? Like making that choice to be convinced by God that he is who he is to me, and to see in a new perspective of the fullness of what he has given me, changed everything. When I had that I really had about 5 years ago, 180 perspective change of that. And that's when I realized that he is good to me, that he loves me, and that's what I could stand on. But it was that was like, oh, okay. That was from Eve all the way back. Like maybe I'm not the only one that feels that way, and just has that maybe agreement in their mind and their heart that wasn't the way God intended. So,
Well, that's good.
In talking about our deepest fear, and you asked if it's different for men and women, and I think it is different, but it is so intertwined with our story, like you're saying, Mel. And Alex, as you share your story, I just go, yep, that was exactly the message that I got, was you don't rock the boat, because if you rock this boat, it is going down. It's already tipping, and they're tipping it, and we can't handle one more person.
Yeah.
So I had to hide. I hid everything. And if I was struggling, even if it was evident, they turned their face away. So what I came to fear deeply was people just running away, me being too much, and then just utterly rejecting me and being left alone. And so I think that in my own navigating of that, sometimes I'll just want to retreat and be alone so I can beat them to it.
Mm.
But
Mm.
yeah, it's the fear of rejection, the fear of
Mm.
abandonment.
Mm.
Mhm.
Mm.
I think too, John, what I would also describe is it's also a fear of failure that was particular to me too, and I think is particular to men.
Yes,
Yeah.
big time.
I don't know how much that plays in for women, but I think the whole thing of, well, I'm not going to be a problem for people was also, if I was, then I've failed. Like, then I'm not really a man. I'm not
Yes.
really worthwhile.
Yes.
And any I don't know what you call it, expectation or chance of failure has been a big fear.
Catastrophic.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, as a man, there's this core knowledge that I am to bring something to the world
Mhm.
that helps, that
Yeah.
helps alleviate pain, that helps flourishing happen, that helps families and communities and kingdoms and realms, and if I am not successful at that, then that's the report card on me.
Mm-hmm.
You are not a man because you have failed here. Fear of failure is huge. It's huge. It's interesting because as I'm processing, as I'm listening to you guys, and I want to use a stronger phrase than the fear of rejection. I want to say, you will die.
Yeah.
Mm.
You will die.
Yeah.
We've actually talked about that with anxiety, like with severe anxiety, you feel like you're going to die.
Right?
With the fear
Right?
of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like there's moments where you're like,
yeah.
yeah.
There.
Right. If I'm going to be abandoned, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
Yes. There's
Mhm.
something about, and maybe this is because of the Trinity and because of the way that in the core of our being, we are made to be in and to be chosen.
Mhm.
To be chosen by our families, by our friends, by to be in.
Yeah.
Right? And if you are out
Mhm.
because you don't measure up or you weren't chosen or you failed or for whatever the multiple reasons, it's death.
Yeah.
It's death.
Yeah.
And I'm just struck by that today listening. Fear of rejection names it, but it doesn't get down to this primal.
It is
Yes.
primal. It is
Mhm.
primal.
Yeah.
It really feels like it.
It is. And I mean, in history, if you were rejected, you died.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, and like you're saying, it is literal, because if you, as a 4-year-old, as a 8-year-old, feel like you're going to be rejected by the very people that are taking care of you, that is the answer, right?
Yes.
Like if you're
Yes.
put out on the street
Yes.
at 4 years old,
Yes.
you will not survive alone.
Yes. Right.
So
Yeah. Okay, now I'm also listening to this from the listener standpoint. I go, there's hope. There's hope. Hang
No,
on.
I just don't want to cry
I
right
know.
now. So
Hang
yeah,
on.
let's get to
There's
the
so
hope.
much hope.
Well, gang, the reason for session 2, the reason for week 2 and the experience is the false self is in the way
mhm.
Mhm.
of experiencing genuine love, genuine acceptance, coming home.
Yes.
Yeah.
Coming home. And the parable of the prodigal son is all about coming home to your true home.
Right.
He wasn't an orphan. He belonged there. He had just wandered, made a mess of things, and it was time for him to come home.
Mhm.
And before we bring this episode in for a landing, this week's podcast, I want to talk about the relief
Mm.
of naming the false self
Mhm.
and, doing the work here, being able to set it down, risking new ways of living. Let's talk about the relief of that, because there is immense relief in it. This isn't just, hey, look at what a mess you are.
Yeah.
Way to go, you.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's
Nope.
not.
No.
This is in the context. The whole conversation is in the context of the loving, redemptive work of
Yes.
Jesus Christ,
Right.
Yes.
Right.
who is after our true self. He's after our heart. He's after wholeheartedness in us. So this is taking place not in the sense of, wow, you made a double mess of your life.
Mhm.
It's in the context of redemption
Exactly.
Mhm.
and the
Yeah.
purposes of the gospel. So what's been the relief, gang?
So as I was watching last night, Bart's session, something that really struck me was, especially in Bart's case, but I would tie this to my story too. The fig leaf and your glory are very closely related.
Mhm.
Like Bart does bear a glory.
Yeah.
For those who haven't watched it, he talks about hard work and how that kind of became his fig leaf, is he could win approval and validation by just working hard.
Yeah.
And so a lot of his life was motivated out of this fear of, I'll be rejected if I don't work hard. But Bart's actually glorious. And, I built a barn with him up at his property, helped build some of it. And many people in our orbit got to help with him
Provided
doing that
free
a bit.
labor.
Yes, free labor.
Exactly.
And the guy can work hard, but there's a glory to it
Sure.
too.
Sure.
And I think that's part of the hope, is
Mm.
that when we begin to see, oh, that's where I've actually put my search for validation, and it's misplaced, and I begin to go, oh, God actually accepts me just as I am, and I am loved. And now that thing that used to be a fig leaf actually can be a strength, that we're not doing it out of fear, but we're doing it out of a secure place of, we're accepted, we're loved. And so in my case, when I help people or I come alongside people, where in the past that was motivated out of, I want them to like me and not reject me. And so I'm doing it out of this place of, this is the thing that's going to make you accept me. It's that fig leaf that hides what I fear you'll see if I'm exposed. But now I go, oh, actually, I don't care what you think about me, but I know that I'm loved by God, but I do care about you. And so I want to come alongside and I want to help. But now I'm not all wrapped up inside of, you have to approve of me.
Wow.
Yeah. You're freer to love.
So
Freer to
much
love.
freedom.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think for me, what I've discovered is the mercy of God. I couldn't look at my fallenness without going into despair unless I was held and in the context of God's mercy and his kindness. That he understood. He understood why I was going to those things. There was a reason behind them.
Mm.
And there was mercy and compassion in his eyes, as there is today. So knowing that is what enables me to lay it down.
Mm.
Go, the ground is not going to swallow me up. I am standing on secure ground of the acceptance, the belonging, the love of God. And I have a choice to make in the moments where I feel the need to control my world or to run away or to hide. And it's simply the choice of believing that I am loved, I am held. So I'm free and I'm forgiven.
Mhm.
I'm forgiven for the ways that I have not trusted God or the harm that I've even caused people through my own sin of going to control.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so good.
When Alex was talking and Stasi, I realized to be present with our motivation behind why we do things. Like, are we doing it because what we think other people think of us? Are we doing it for comfort? But to go, I don't have to do that. I can do it because I want to love other people, but I'm okay with who I am. And that to serve and to love from a secure foundation of, I am the way God created me and know your giftings too. Like Alex was saying, it is part of his gifting, that we can love even from that part of us if we invite God into it. And actually, when you were introducing this, I just got this vision of God just celebrating when we become who we're supposed to be. Just this, yes, like that's the daughter, that's the son, that's who I see you as in your true self. And I want you to live there and just celebrating when we do live in those moments of being how he sees us and creates us to be.
Friends, what you're hearing is the gospel narrative. So if I could just say some very essential truths, you are a daughter or a son of God. You are his from the beginning. And yes, we have all lost our way. And yes, there is both sin and woundedness in everyone's story. But the fierce intention, the coming of Jesus Christ, his reason is to restore you, to bring you home to your true family, and to celebrate you, the person that you are created to be. I'm thinking of Ephesians 1, where Paul says, praise God, our Father, who chose us before the creation of the world to be whole and holy in his love, to be made whole and holy in his love. There is a bedrock that we can stand on. You are loved. You are chosen. You are deeply, deeply accepted by the ones who matter most, by your true Father, by your Lord Jesus, by the Spirit of God. And it's that language that you're hearing around the table as we're describing, I came to a safe place, I came to a good place, that enables a person to begin to make the grand shift. And I think I want to describe the grand shift as that less and less of my actions are motivated by self-protection and more motivated by love. And I don't need to be in that posture of self-protection anymore, that I can actually move over into the lane of love. I can operate from love because I don't need to self-protect. I'm okay. I'm safe. Personally, I don't need to control the narrative of what other people are holding about me because God has given the verdict on my life. And it is one of love and forgiveness and blessing. And to your point, Mel, to celebration and rejoicing over our lives. That's the context. That's the gospel narrative that allows us to look at our fig leaves, to throw the category on the table, Mel, of motives. Like, that's so huge. You can do that from a safe place. You can do that even from like humor. And to kind of be able to sort of crack up at, oh, dear Lord, I did it again. I can't believe that I just said that in that meeting. Without shame, guilt, self-reproach, you actually don't have to do this work from a place of self-reproach. It can be kind and merciful and even playful, and therefore really worth doing. So if you want to take the journey with us, you can still jump in. You come to our website, wildatheart.org, and you'll find right there on the homepage the invitation to the Captivating Experience or the Wild at Heart Experience. And what that is, what we're describing is, it's free. Sign up, give us your email, and we will email you once a week for 6 weeks, the video session, the scriptures, the questions for reflection, the readings, and some coaching, a little audio coaching by Stasi or me of, okay, here's what week 3 is about, and here's some things to be aware of. So you kind of journey through it for 6 weeks, and you can do it on your own. You could do it with your spouse. You could do it in a group. But that's available anytime, all year on our website. It's just kind of perennial there. But we'll continue on the podcast next week with episode 3, and then 4, 5, 6 with some of the other couples here in the Wild at Heart orbit. But Alex and Mel, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So generous of you to come in and be vulnerable and share your stories. Thank you.
You bet.
Yeah, loved it.